Who taught you to fight? Alien Instructor asked. Then Deathworlder girl said, my 6-year-old sister. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The polished floor of the Galactic Federation Combat Academy gleamed under the artificial lights, reflecting the diverse array of species gathered in the grand training hall. Among them stood Riley Cooper, the only human in a class of 37 alien cadets. Valen Torx circled around Riley, his 4 yellow eyes narrowed in concentration. The Durrani combat instructor towered over her by at least 2 feet, his scaled skin shifting colors from deep blue to a curious purple as he analyzed her stance. Around them, the other cadets watched in silence, many with expressions ranging from amusement to disdain. Humans were new to the Galactic Federation, barely 7 years since first contact, and most species still considered them primitive curiosities from a backwater death planet. Again, Valen commanded, his dual-toned voice reverberating through the chamber. Show me the defensive counter to a Creston grapple. Riley nodded, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, eyes focused and body tensed. The training drone activated, its 6 limbs extending as it rushed forward with startling speed. In a fluid motion that seemed almost casual, Riley sidestepped the attack, caught one of the drone's arms, and used its own momentum to flip it completely over. The heavy drone crashed to the floor with a resounding thud that echoed through the silent hall. A murmur rippled through the watching cadets. The drone was calibrated for Durrani strength, nearly 3 times that of an average human. Yet Riley had handled it as if it weighed nothing. Valen's color shifted to a bright orange. Surprise, Riley had learned. In the 6 standard months since she'd arrived at the academy, she'd become adept at reading Durrani color shifts. This particular shade indicated not just surprise, but perhaps a hint of respect. That was not a standard counter technique, Valen said, circling her again. Where did you learn this? Riley straightened, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. It's an adaptation of a human technique called judo, sir. No, Valen shook his massive head. Your basic form, yes. But that specific counter. I've studied your species' combat forms extensively. That movement sequence isn't documented in any human military or civilian combat database. The room fell into a deeper silence. Riley could feel the stares of her classmates intensifying, particularly from Nexara, the Valkyrian cadet who had made it his personal mission to prove humans didn't belong in the academy. Who taught you to fight? The alien instructor asked, stopping directly in front of her. Riley's lips quirked into a small smile. My 6-year-old sister. The silence shattered as several cadets burst into laughter. Nexara's barking laugh was the loudest, his mandibles clicking together in what Riley had come to recognize as Valkyrian mockery. Valen's scales flashed a dangerous red. You find this amusing, Cadet Cooper? Combat training is not a matter for humor in this academy. No, sir. I'm completely serious, Riley replied, her smile fading. My sister Emma taught me that move when she was 6. I was 8. Valen stared at her, his 4 eyes blinking in an unsynchronized pattern that indicated deep confusion. Explain. Riley took a breath. On Earth, my family lived in a rural area. Our parents were often busy with work, so I looked after Emma when they couldn't be there. One day, I was teaching her basic self-defense, just in case. Your species teaches combat to infant offspring? Interrupted Treska, a Lentirian cadet with translucent skin that revealed the pulsing of her 3 hearts. 6 years is hardly infancy for humans, Riley clarified. And yes, many human children learn basic self-defense. Our planet can be dangerous. Continue, Valen prompted, his scales now a curious mix of blue and yellow, fascination and skepticism. I was showing Emma how to break away if someone grabbed her arm, but she couldn't quite get it right because of the size difference between us. So she invented her own technique. She said, what if I just do this instead? And then she did. Well, basically what I just did to the drone. Used my size and strength against me. Flipped me right on my back in our yard. Riley smiled at the memory. She'd been watching old martial arts vids on our home system and combined them with her own instincts. After she floored me the first time, I asked her to teach me. The training hall remained silent for several moments before Nexara spoke, his voice dripping with scorn. You expect us to believe that a human infant devised a combat technique effective against a military-grade training drone? Riley shrugged. Children on Earth play rough. They're creative, adaptable. Emma just saw a problem and found a solution. That's what humans do. Valen's scales settled into a deep blue. Cadet Cooper, perhaps you would demonstrate this technique again. This time with a live opponent. He turned to the assembled cadets. Nexara, step forward. The Valkyrian's mandibles clicked together in what Riley recognized as anticipation. At nearly 7 feet tall with an exoskeleton that could withstand small arms fire, Nexara was the top-ranked combat specialist in their class. He strode forward confidently, his forearms flexing. Proper grapple only, cadet, Valen instructed Nexara. No strikes. Demonstrate the Creston submission hold we practiced last week. Nexara nodded, moving into position opposite Riley. She could see the contempt in his compound eyes, the absolute certainty of victory. Valkyrians were apex predators on their homeworld, and they carried that arrogance throughout the galaxy. Begin, Valen commanded. Nexara didn't hesitate. He lunged forward with shocking speed, his primary arms reaching for Riley's shoulders while his secondary arms went for her waist, a classic Creston grapple that, when properly executed, was nearly impossible to escape. Nearly. Riley didn't resist the initial contact. Instead, she shifted her weight fractionally, allowing Nexara's momentum to continue past where he expected resistance. In the split second of confusion this created, she executed the same move she'd used on the drone, but with modifications appropriate for Valkyrian physiology. She gripped his primary right arm, pivoted, and used his own forward momentum to send him flying. The impact of Nexara's body hitting the training mat resonated through the hall like a thunderclap. The Valkyrian lay flat on his back, all 4 arms splayed out, his compound eyes wide with shock. Riley stepped back, resuming a neutral stance as she'd been trained. The entire exchange had taken less than 3 seconds. The silence in the training hall was absolute. That, Riley said quietly, is what my little sister taught me when she was 6. Valen approached slowly, his scales cycling through colors so rapidly that Riley couldn't interpret them. He stopped beside the still-prone Nexara, then looked at Riley. Humans, he finally said, continue to surprise me. He extended a hand to help Nexara up. The Valkyrian took it reluctantly, mandibles tight against his face in humiliation. Class dismissed, Valen announced. Cadet Cooper remained behind. As the other cadets filed out, many casting curious glances back at Riley, she stood at attention, wondering if she'd gone too far. Embarrassing the Academy's star combat specialist might have consequences, even if it had been at the instructor's request. When the hall had emptied, Valen approached her. Sit, he said, indicating a bench along the wall. Riley complied, and to her surprise, the massive Durrani sat beside her. You've been holding back in training, he said. It wasn't a question. Riley hesitated. Yes, sir. Why? She chose her words carefully. Humans are new to the Federation. Many species already see us as dangerous because we come from what you classify as a death world. I didn't want to reinforce stereotypes. Valen's scales settled into a calm blue. An admirable sentiment, but misguided. This is a combat academy, Cadet Cooper. You do yourself and your training partners a disservice by concealing your true capabilities. I understand, sir. I think perhaps you don't. Valen turned to face her directly. When your species was invited to join the Federation, many opposed it. Humans are unpredictable, aggressive by galactic standards, and from an evolutionary perspective, remarkably adaptable. These traits make many council species uncomfortable. Riley nodded. She'd heard these arguments before. What they fail to understand, Valen continued, is that these same traits make humans potentially valuable allies. The galaxy is not always the peaceful coalition the Federation portrays in its public broadcasts. There are threats beyond our borders that would make even your death world seem hospitable by comparison. A chill ran down Riley's spine. This was not the kind of talk she expected from an academy instructor. Sir, the Krell incursion 3 cycles ago was not an isolated incident, despite what the Council claims, Valence said, his voice lower. Intelligence suggests they are massing for another, larger offensive. The Durrani military command has been preparing, but many on the Council refuse to acknowledge the threat. Riley remained silent, processing this information. The Krell were a mysterious species from the far reaches of the galaxy. First-year cadets weren't supposed to be briefed on them until advanced tactical studies. Tomorrow, you will be assigned to a new training group, Valen continued. A specialized unit preparing for contingencies the Council prefers not to discuss publicly. Your acceptance is voluntary, but recommended. May I ask why me, sir? I'm barely through my first cycle of basic training. Valen's scales shifted to a deep purple. Because, Cadet Cooper, if a human child can invent effective combat techniques through play, imagine what a trained human warrior might accomplish when facing extinction. He stood abruptly. Report to Hangar Bay 7 at 0500 tomorrow. Pack for extended deployment. Any further questions will be answered there. Riley rose to her feet. Yes, sir. As Valen turned to leave, he paused. One more thing, Cadet. This little sister of yours, is she planning to join the academy? For the first time since arriving at the academy, Riley laughed genuinely. Emma? Not likely, sir. Last I heard, she was studying xenobiology. Says fighting is too simple. She wants to understand how species think, not how to beat them. Valen's scales flickered to a color Riley had never seen him display before, a soft lavender that seemed almost wistful. Perhaps that is the wiser path, he said quietly, before striding from the training hall. That night, Riley packed her few belongings in the small dormitory room she'd called home for the past 6 months. Her roommate, Treska, watched from her floating sleep pod. Is it true? The Lentirian asked, her translucent skin pulsing with curiosity. You're being reassigned? Riley nodded, carefully folding her spare uniform. Special training unit. That's all I know. Because of what happened with Nexara, Treska's 3 hearts beat visibly faster. The entire academy is talking about it. No one has ever defeated him in a training match, let alone so efficiently. I just used what I know, Riley replied, uncomfortable with the attention. Treska floated closer, her natural bioluminescence casting a soft glow in the dimly lit room. Is it also true about your sister? That a human child taught you this technique? Riley smiled, pausing in her packing. Emma has always been special. More clever than strong, more compassionate than competitive. But she understood something fundamental about combat that many trained warriors miss. Which is that fighting isn't about strength or speed or even technique. It's about understanding yourself and your opponent, knowing when to resist and when to yield. Treska considered this. Your species is strange, Riley Cooper. The Federation classifies Earth as a Class 12 death world, yet you speak of combat as if it were philosophy. Maybe on a death world, fighting and philosophy become the same thing, Riley suggested. When survival isn't guaranteed, you learn to think differently. A chime sounded, indicating lights out was approaching. Treska retreated to her sleep pod, but lingered at its edge. Will you return to the academy? She asked. Riley secured her pack. I honestly don't know. Then may your path be illuminated, Treska said, using the traditional Lentirian farewell. Perhaps one day I will meet this sister who teaches combat to warriors. I hope so, Riley replied. You'd like her. Everyone does. As the room lights dimmed automatically, Riley lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts drifted to Earth, to the sprawling farmhouse in Montana where she'd grown up, to Emma and their parents. She hadn't told them about her reassignment yet, partly because communications to Earth were restricted, but mostly because she didn't know what to say. How could she explain that a childhood game with her little sister had somehow caught the attention of Federation military command? that the combat moves Emma had invented while playing in their backyard might now be considered valuable tactical assets in an interstellar conflict? The absurdity of it made her smile in the darkness. If Emma were here, she'd probably just shrug and say something profound yet casual, the way she always did. That was Emma's gift, seeing the complex truths in simple moments. As sleep began to claim her, Riley's last thoughts were of her sister. She made a silent promise to herself that whatever this new assignment entailed, whatever secrets Valen was hinting at regarding the Krell, she would survive it. She would master it. And someday, she would tell Emma how her childhood creativity had shaped the course of Riley's life among the stars. Morning arrived too quickly. Riley woke before the automated system could alert her, dressed in her training uniform, and shouldered her pack. With a last look at the sleeping form of Treska, her 3 hearts pulsing slowly in the transparent comfort of her sleep pod, Riley slipped from the room. The corridors of the academy were deserted at this early hour, her footsteps echoing off the polished metal floors. Through occasional viewports, she could see the first light of the system's sun cresting the curve of Denari Prime, the Federation capital world. For a moment, she paused to take in the view. The sprawling cityscape that housed representatives from over 300 sentient species, the gleaming spires of the council chambers, the vast orbital docks where ships from across the galaxy came and went in a constant dance of commerce and diplomacy. It was beautiful, and so different from the rugged mountains and forests of her home. Yet in the 7 months since she'd arrived, she'd never felt truly welcome here. Until yesterday, she'd assumed it was simply the natural adjustment period for any new species joining the galactic community. Now, she wondered if there was more to it. If the Federation's hesitation to fully embrace humanity stemmed from fear rather than caution. Shaking off these thoughts, Riley continued toward Hangar Bay 7. As she approached, she noticed the security was far heavier than around the Academy's other facilities. Armed Durrani guards flanked the entrance, their scales of vigilant red-orange. Identification, one demanded as she approached. Riley presented her Academy credentials. The guard scanned them, then nodded to his partner. The massive doors slid open, revealing a hangar unlike any Riley had seen before. Instead of the sleek training vessels used by cadets, a large, heavily armored ship dominated the space. Its hull was matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and its design was angular and predatory. No markings or designations were visible anywhere on its surface. Standing at the base of the boarding ramp was Valen, alongside a small group of other military personnel, none wearing standard Federation uniforms. Instead, they were clad in form-fitting combat gear of a design Riley didn't recognize. Cadet Cooper, Valen greeted her, his scales a professional blue. Punctual. Good, sir. Riley responded with a crisp salute. Reporting as ordered. Valen gestured to the others. These are your new instructors and teammates. For security purposes, you will know them only by their operational designations for now. The diverse group regarded Riley with varying expressions. A Severian with metallic skin nodded slightly. A Thrixian combat specialist clicked her mandibles in what might have been approval. A massive Ogrok security specialist simply grunted. And to Riley's surprise, a Valkyrian tactical officer, though not Nexara, crossed all 4 of his arms in the traditional warrior's salute. This is Fireteam Umbra, Valen continued. A special operations unit tasked with missions beyond standard Federation protocols. As of this moment, Cadet Cooper, your academy training is suspended. If you choose to accept this assignment, you will become Umbra 7. Riley glanced at the assembled team. I count 5, sir. 6 is your commanding officer, Valen explained, already aboard. And yes, you would be 7. The human gets a number already? The Ogrox rumbled. She hasn't proven anything yet. She broke Nexara's perfect record, the Valkyrian countered. With a technique taught by a human child. I'd say that warrants consideration. Children, the Severian said, his metallic face unreadable. Humans invest heavily in their offspring. Interesting evolutionary strategy for a Deathworld species. Riley stood silently as they discussed her, as if she weren't present. It was a familiar feeling since joining the academy, being examined like a specimen rather than addressed as a peer. Enough, Valen interrupted. Cooper has earned her place here through demonstrated ability. The decision now is hers. He turned to Riley. This assignment is classified beyond standard Federation protocols. If you accept, you will not contact Earth or anyone at the Academy until mission completion. Training will be intensive, dangerous, and unlike anything in the standard curriculum. The Krell threat is real, and this team is one of several being prepared to counter it. He paused, his scales shifting to a solemn gray. You may decline with no impact to your Academy standing. This is entirely voluntary. Riley looked from Valen to the ship, then to her potential new teammates. This wasn't what she had envisioned when she'd left Earth to represent humanity at the prestigious Galactic Federation Combat Academy. She'd imagined a diplomatic role, perhaps eventually serving as a bridge between human and alien military traditions. Instead, she was being recruited into what appeared to be a Black Ops team preparing for a war most of the Federation didn't know was coming. What exactly is the mission, sir? She asked. That will be fully briefed once we're underway, Valen replied. For now, I can tell you only that we believe the Krell are targeting several death worlds for their next incursion. Earth among them. A cold certainty settled in Riley's chest. Emma, she whispered. Your sister may be in danger. Yes, Valen confirmed. Along with all of humanity. The Council is reluctant to provide official warnings without more concrete evidence, which is why we're operating outside normal channels. Riley squared her shoulders. Then I accept the assignment, sir. Valen's scales rippled with approval. Welcome to Fireteam Umbra 7. As Riley followed her new team up the boarding ramp, she thought again of Emma. Of sunny days in Montana, teaching her little sister how to defend herself. Of Emma's laughter when she'd invented her own solution to the problem of fighting larger opponents. Now that childhood lesson might help Riley protect not just her sister, but all of humanity. The irony wasn't lost on her. The ship's interior was as austere as its exterior, functional, minimal, designed for a crew with a singular focus. Riley was led to a small compartment that would serve as her quarters. Stow your gear and report to the briefing room in 15 minutes, the Valkyrian instructed. 6 will want to assess you personally. Alone in the compact space, Riley quickly arranged her few belongings. As she did, she noticed a small terminal blinking with a secure message. Curious, she activated it. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a Federation security file. At the top was Emma's name and image, her sister as she looked now, not the 6-year-old who had taught Riley that pivotal fighting move. Below it was a simple status update, under surveillance. Potential asset. Riley's blood ran cold. The Federation was monitoring Emma? Why? Because of her connection to Riley? Or because of something else entirely? Before she could process this revelation, an alert chimed, indicating it was time for the briefing. Riley closed the file, her mind racing. Whatever was happening with the Krell, whatever Fireteam Umbra's true purpose was, it now seemed clear that Emma was somehow involved. And if that was the case, Riley knew with absolute certainty that she would do whatever it took to protect her sister, the girl who had once taught a future Federation combat specialist how to fight. The briefing room was circular, with a holographic projection system dominating its center. Around it stood the members of Fireteam Umbra, all facing a figure whose back was to Riley as she entered. Umbra 7, reporting as ordered, she announced. The figure turned, and Riley felt her breath catch. Standing before her was a human woman, perhaps in her mid-30s, with the same Federation military insignia as Valen, indicating high rank. Welcome, 7, the woman said, her voice carrying the faint traces of an Australian accent. I'm Commander Eliza Hayes. Umbra 6 and your new CO. Riley snapped to attention. Ma'am. At ease, Hayes said, gesturing to an empty spot in the circle. We're about to begin. As Riley took her position, she noted the curious glances from her teammates. Clearly, they hadn't expected their commanding officer to be human either. Secure the room, Hayes ordered, and the Severian, who Riley now knew as Umbra 3, activated a series of controls that caused a subtle shimmer to ripple across the walls. Anti-surveillance measures active. 3 confirmed. We're clean. Hayes nodded and activated the holographic display. The image of a massive, crustacean-like organism appeared, rotating slowly to show its grotesque anatomy. It had multiple limbs ending in vicious claws, a segmented exoskeleton covered in what appeared to be natural armor plating, and a head featuring compound eyes and numerous sensory appendages. The Krell, Hayes began, a hive mind species from the far reaches of the Scutum Centaurus arm. 3 Federation cycles ago, they launched probing attacks against outlying colonies. The official record states these were isolated incidents, successfully repelled. The hologram shifted to show footage of devastated worlds, once thriving colonies reduced to ash and rubble. The truth is more complicated, Hayes continued. The Krell weren't testing our defenses. They were sampling. Sampling? Riley asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Hayes looked at her directly. Genetic sampling. The Krell are evolutionary parasites. They identify species with desirable traits, harvest genetic material, and incorporate it into their own genome. The attacks 3 cycles ago targeted worlds with species known for specific attributes: Durrani strength, Thrixian speed, Lentirian regenerative capabilities. And now they're targeting death worlds, the Valkyrian, Umbra 4, stated. Including Earth. Correct, Hayes confirmed. Intelligence suggests they're specifically interested in the adaptive capabilities of death world species. Humans in particular have caught their attention. Riley thought of the file she'd seen in her quarters. My sister, she said. You're monitoring her. What? The room fell silent. Hayes regarded Riley with a calculating expression. Your sister, she finally said, has been identified as possessing unique genetic markers, even for a human. Her adaptive capabilities are extraordinary. Emma's just a normal kid, Riley protested. A xenobiology student. Is she? Hayes asked quietly. Think, 7. Your sister invented an effective combat technique by watching and adapting with no formal training. At age 6, what else has she done that seemed unusual, even for a clever child? Riley hesitated. There had been incidents throughout their childhood. Emma's uncanny ability to pick up new languages, her intuitive understanding of complex systems, her nearly perfect recall. Riley had always attributed these things to her sister being gifted, but now, she's not the only one, Hayes continued. We've identified approximately 1 in 10,000 humans with similar genetic markers. A recent evolutionary branch, appearing with increasing frequency over the past 3 generations. We believe it's Earth's response to increasing environmental pressures. Adaptive evolution. The Thrixian, Umbra 2, clicked. Fascinating. And the Krell want it, Hayes concluded. Our mission is to prevent that from happening. The hologram shifted again, displaying a star chart with several systems highlighted. Recent intelligence has identified a Krell advance force operating in this sector. They're establishing a forward base in preparation for a larger incursion. Our mission is to locate this base, gather intelligence on their plans, and if possible, eliminate the threat before it materializes. And if not possible? Riley asked. Hayes' expression hardened. Then we ensure Earth receives warning and preparation time, whatever the cost. The briefing continued for another hour, covering tactical details, equipment specifications, and operational protocols. Throughout, Riley's mind kept returning to Emma. Her little sister, always special, always different, was potentially at the center of an interstellar conflict. When the briefing concluded, Hayes dismissed the team to prepare for departure, but signaled for Riley to remain behind. Once they were alone, Hayes' formal demeanor softened slightly. You have questions, she said. That's good. Questioning is a human trait the Krell would love to incorporate. My sister, Riley began. Is she in immediate danger? Not immediate, no. We have assets monitoring her and others like her. But if the Krell launch a full-scale invasion of Earth, everyone will be in danger. Riley nodded, processing this. Why me? I'm barely through basic training. Surely there are more qualified humans for this mission. Hayes studied her for a moment. Your combat evaluation yesterday was impressive. Valen has been instructing Federation Special Forces for over 30 years. He doesn't impress easily. That doesn't answer my question. No, it doesn't, Hayes agreed. The truth is, 7, you share the same genetic markers as your sister, though yours express differently. Where Emma processes and adapts intellectually, you do so physically. Your combat instincts, your ability to absorb and modify techniques, your physical responses to stress, they're all indicative of the adaptation we're tracking. Riley felt a chill run through her. You're saying I'm some kind of evolutionary experiment? I'm saying you're the next step in human adaptation, Hayes corrected. And right now, that makes you ideally suited for this mission. The Krell evolved by stealing genetic traits. We need to understand what they're planning, and who better to help us than someone naturally equipped to adapt to unexpected situations. Riley wasn't sure if she should feel flattered or like a lab specimen. And after this mission, what happens to Emma, to the others like her, like us? Hayes' expression became unreadable. One crisis at a time, 7. Right now, our focus is stopping the Krell before they can launch their invasion. It wasn't really an answer, but Riley recognized the dismissal in Hayes' tone. Yes, ma'am. Get some rest, Hayes advised. Training begins at 0600 ship time. You'll need it. Over the next 3 weeks, as the stealth vessel traveled toward the sector where Krell activity had been detected, Riley underwent the most intensive training of her life. Each member of Fire Team Umbra specialized in different aspects of combat and intelligence gathering, and each took turns drilling her mercilessly. From 2, the Thrixian, she learned advanced stealth techniques and how to move silently even in full tactical gear. 3, the Severian, taught her cryptography and electronic countermeasures. 4, the Valkyrian, drilled her in small unit tactics until she could coordinate complex maneuvers in her sleep. And 5, the massive Ogrox, pushed her physical training to limits she hadn't known her body could reach. Through it all, Hayes watched and occasionally intervened, but largely allowed the team to forge Riley into something new. Neither purely a Federation soldier nor entirely the Academy cadet she had been. Something in between, adaptable and evolving. At night, exhausted from training, Riley would often think of Emma. She wondered what her sister was doing, if she knew she was being watched, if she had any idea of the genetic uniqueness that made her valuable to both the Federation and the Krell. She thought of their childhood games, which now seemed like prophetic preparation for a conflict neither of them could have imagined. On the 23rd day of their journey, an alert sounded throughout the ship. Riley, in the middle of a tactical simulation with 4, immediately responded to the summons to the command deck. Hayes stood before the main view screen, her expression grim. We've detected a Krell scout ship on the edge of the Proxima system. They're already closer to Earth than we anticipated. Riley felt her blood run cold. Proxima Centauri was the star system neighboring Sol, practically Earth's backyard in galactic terms. How? 5 demanded. Federation outposts should have detected their approach. They're using a new form of stealth technology, 3 explained, his metallic fingers moving rapidly over the sensor controls. Something that absorbs standard scanner frequencies. We only detected them because we were specifically looking for anomalies in background radiation patterns. They're adapting. 2 clicked, mandibles twitching nervously. Faster than projected. We need to intercept, Hayes decided. If they've reached Proxima, they could reach Earth within days. 3, can you track them? The Severian nodded. They're not moving at FTL speeds. Appears to be a reconnaissance mission, not an invasion force yet. Then we have a chance. Hayes looked at the assembled team. Prepare for combat deployment. Full tactical loadout. We board their vessel, extract whatever intelligence we can about their plans, then destroy it before it can report back. A Krell ship. 5 rumbled skeptically. The 6 of us. 7, Riley corrected automatically, earning a surprised look from the Ogrox. 7, Hayes confirmed with the barest hint of a smile. Suit up. 2 hours later, Riley found herself in the ship's airlock, clad in Federation Special Operations armor modified for human physiology. The sleek black suit was lighter than it looked, with integrated life support, communications, and defensive systems. Around her, the rest of Fireteam Umbra made final preparations. 2 checked her stealth field generator, 4 loaded his multi-phase rifle, 5 secured a massive graviton hammer to his back, and 3 calibrated what appeared to be a highly advanced hacking module. Hayes approached, her own armor featuring subtle command insignia. "Final briefing," she announced. "The Krell vessel is approximately twice the size of ours, likely with a crew of 30 to 40 drones plus at least 1 overmind." "Overmind?" Riley questioned. "Control unit," Fur explained. "The individual Krell you saw in the hologram operate as a hive, but each cluster needs an overmind to coordinate. Kill it, and the drones become disorganized. Our primary objective is intelligence," Hayes continued. 3 will access their navigation systems to determine if this is an isolated scout or part of a larger advance. Secondary objective is to retrieve any data on their genetic sampling plans. Only then do we scuttle the ship. "And if we encounter resistance?" 5 asked, though his eager tone suggested he was hoping for exactly that. "Lethal force authorized," Hayes confirmed. "But quiet and clean when possible. We don't want to alert the hive before we get what we need." Riley checked her own weapon, a compact pulse rifle calibrated to her specifications. Despite weeks of training, this would be her first actual combat mission. The thought should have terrified her, but instead, she felt a strange clarity descending, a hyper-focused state where every detail seemed sharp and time itself seemed to flow differently. 7, Hayes said, drawing her attention. "Stay close to 3. Your job is to protect him while he extracts the data." "Yes, ma'am." "One more thing," Hayes added, her voice softer. "The Krell adapt quickly. If they capture you, they'll extract your genetic material and potentially gain the very adaptability we're trying to protect. If capture is imminent." "I understand," Riley interrupted. The implications were clear. Hayes nodded, then addressed the team. "Prepare for boarding action in 5 minutes. May fortune favor the bold." The strike was initially textbook perfect. Their ship approached the Krell vessel under stealth, matching velocity and rotation. 3 identified a maintenance airlock that allowed them to breach the hull without triggering alarms. 2 stealth field covered their entry, and they moved through the alien corridors like ghosts. The interior of the Krell ship was unlike anything Riley had seen before. Organic and mechanical elements seamlessly integrated, with surfaces that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The air was thick with a sweet, cloying scent that their suit filters barely managed to neutralize. 3 led them toward what he identified as the ship's central processing node. They encountered 2 Krell drones en route. Massive, armored creatures that 5 dispatched with brutal efficiency before they could sound an alarm. Riley noted with clinical detachment that the actual Krell looked even more nightmarish than the holographic representation had suggested. At the processing node, 3 immediately began his work, connecting his equipment to the alien systems with an adapter specifically designed for Krell technology. Riley took up a defensive position, covering the main entrance while the others secured alternative approaches. "This is concerning," 3 muttered as data began flowing across his interface. "They have detailed scans of Sol system defenses, far more comprehensive than they should have been able to obtain." "Meaning?" Hayes pressed. "Meaning they likely have infiltrated Federation networks," 3 replied. "Or they have informants." "How long until you have what we need?" For asked, mandibles clicking anxiously. 5 minutes for the navigational data. Another 10 for the genetic research files. Hayes nodded. "Work fast." 5, 4, set charges at these junctions. She marked points on their tactical display. 2, maintain stealth coverage. 7, stay on security. Riley acknowledged the order, her attention focused on the corridor outside the processing node. Her enhanced helmet sensors detected no movement, but something felt wrong. A tension in the air, perhaps, or some subtle vibration through the deck plates. Her instincts, The same instincts that had allowed her to adapt Emma's technique against Nexara were screaming warnings. 3, she said quietly. How intelligent are the Krell drones without their overmind? Limited tactical cognition, he replied without looking up from his work. Why? Because we haven't encountered enough resistance, Riley said. 2 drones for a ship this size? It doesn't make sense unless. A piercing alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship, cutting her off. Red light flooded the corridors, and the organic components of the walls began pulsing rapidly. Trap, Hayes concluded grimly. They knew we were coming. 3's metallic hands flew over his interface. Almost have the navigation data. Need 2 more minutes for the research files. You have 1, Hayes decided. 5, 4 defensive positions. 2, conserve your stealth field for our exit. 7, with me. Riley followed Hayes to a secondary doorway that had previously been secured. Beyond it, they could hear the sounds of multiple heavy forms moving rapidly through the corridors. How many? Hayes asked. Riley checked her tactical display, which was struggling to penetrate the ship's strange biomechanical structure. At least 12 approaching from the aft section. More signatures gathering forward. Hayes nodded, her expression unreadable behind her helmet visor. When we're compromised, I'll hold this position as long as possible. You get the team back to the extraction point. Ma'am, with respect. That's an order, 7. Hayes cut her off. Earth needs to know what's coming. Your sister needs to know. Before Riley could respond, a massive impact shook the doorway. The Krell were attempting to force entry. Got it, 3 announced triumphantly. Navigation data confirms this is an advanced scout for a larger force, at least 30 ships, massing at the edge of the Proxima system. The research files? Hayes demanded, bracing against the buckling door. Partial download only, 3 admitted, but enough to confirm they're specifically targeting humans with the adaptive genome. They've identified 217 individuals already. Riley's heart raced. Emma. 3 checked his data. Emma Cooper is on their priority acquisition list, yes. The door buckled further under another massive impact. Hayes made a quick decision. Team, fall back to extraction point Delta. 7, take point. 3, transmit that data to our ship immediately, tight beam encryption. Already done, 3 confirmed. Move out, Hayes ordered, drawing a second weapon from her armor. I'll cover the retreat. The team began falling back through a secondary corridor, with Riley reluctantly taking the lead position. Behind them, the door finally gave way with a screech of tearing metal, and Hayes opened fire on the Krell forces pouring through. The sounds of intense combat echoed behind them as they moved rapidly through the ship's twisting corridors. 2 stealth field helped them avoid direct confrontation with several Krell patrols, but as they neared their extraction point, they encountered a massive barrier. A biological membrane had sealed the corridor. Organic security measure, 3 explained, scanning the obstruction. The ship is literally growing barriers to trap us. Can we go around? Riley asked. For check the tactical display. No time. More Krell approaching from multiple vectors. Then we go through, 5 decided, activating his graviton hammer. The massive weapon hummed with power as he swung it in a devastating arc, tearing through the biological barrier with a spray of viscous fluid. They charged through the opening, only to find themselves in a large chamber they hadn't passed through on their entry. In the center stood a Krell unlike the others, larger, with more complex appendages and a cranial structure that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Overmind, for hissed, raising his rifle. Before any of them could fire, the Overmind emitted a high-pitched sound that sent waves of disorientation through Riley's mind. Her vision blurred, and her limbs felt suddenly heavy. Psychic attack, 2 managed to say, her mandibles clicking in distress. Can't focus. The room seemed to warp around them as the Overmind advanced. Riley fought against the mental assault, drawing on the same instinctive adaptability that had served her throughout her life. She thought of Emma, of their childhood games, of the simple techniques her sister had invented that had brought Riley to this moment. What would Emma do? Not fight the Force directly, but redirect it. Use the enemy's strength against them. Acting on pure instinct, Riley activated her suit's emergency countermeasure system, designed to emit an electromagnetic pulse in case of systems failure. The pulse wasn't powerful enough to damage the Krell ship, but it created a momentary disruption in the Overmind's psychic attack. In that brief window of clarity, Five roared and charged forward, his graviton hammer swinging in a devastating arc that connected with the Overmind's central mass. The creature emitted a piercing shriek as its body crumpled under the massive impact. The psychic pressure vanished instantly. Around them, they could hear the sounds of confusion as the Krell drones throughout the ship suddenly lost their coordination. "Move," Riley ordered, leading the team toward the extraction point. "We have minutes before they reorganize." They raced through corridors now filled with disoriented Krell drones, some wandering aimlessly, others attacking each other in confusion. At the airlock where they had entered, two reactivated her stealth field to cover their escape back to their own vessel. Once aboard, three immediately rushed to the bridge while five sealed the airlock behind them. "Hayes," for asked, looking back toward the Krell ship. Riley checked her tactical display. Commander Hayes' life signs had flatlined 15 minutes earlier during the initial firefight. She'd known it, but hadn't had time to process the information until now. "She didn't make it," Riley said quietly. A moment of silence fell over the team before Five spoke. "Then her sacrifice must mean something. We complete the mission." On the bridge, three had already begun the engine startup sequence. "I've activated the charges we placed. We have 3 minutes until detonation." "Wait," Riley said suddenly. "What about the other Krell ships? If this one doesn't report back, won't they simply send another?" "Most likely," For agreed. "Unless..." Riley saw the plan forming in the Valkyrians' compound eyes. "Unless they receive a report saying Earth's defenses are too strong to approach directly." Three's metallic face couldn't show expressions, but his voice carried approval. "I can send a false transmission using the Krell ship's own communications array. Make them believe this scout encountered unexpected resistance." "Can you make it convincing?" Five rumbled skeptically. "With the Overmind dead, there's no one to contradict the report," Three pointed out. "I just need to access their system one more time." "How long?" Riley asked. 2 minutes. "I can do it remotely from our ship." Riley made the decision. "Do it. Then we destroy the ship and head for Earth at maximum speed." Three's fingers flew over the controls, creating and transmitting a false report that would hopefully buy Earth precious time. As they pulled away from the Krell vessel, Riley watched on the view screen as their charges detonated, tearing the alien ship apart in a series of spectacular explosions. "Course for Earth laid in," For announced. "Maximum speed will get us there in 3 days." "Any sign of pursuit?" Riley asked. Two, monitoring the sensor array, shook her head. "None detected. The false report appears to have worked, at least for now." Riley nodded, feeling the weight of command settling on her shoulders. With Hayes gone, she was the ranking human officer, and given the nature of their mission, that put her in charge. 3. Prepare a complete report for Federation High Command. Include everything we've learned about the Krell plans and their interest in adaptive humans. 4. Contact your intelligence assets. We need to know if there are Krell sympathizers within the Federation. 5. 2. Prepare our weapons and stealth systems for potential combat when we reach Earth. The team acknowledged her orders without question, each moving to their assigned tasks with the efficiency of elite operators. Alone on the observation deck hours later, Riley gazed at the stars streaking past as the ship hurtled toward Earth. Her thoughts turned to Emma, unaware of the genetic uniqueness that had made her a target, unaware that her childhood games had indirectly prepared Riley for this moment. The door slid open behind her, and two entered silently, her insectoid form moving with characteristic grace. "The others are concerned," the Thrixian said without preamble. "They question whether Earth is ready for what's coming." Riley didn't turn from the viewport. "Earth has never been ready for any of its existential threats. We adapt. It's what we do. Like you did against the Overmind," Two observed. "That was unexpected. I just thought about what my sister would do," Riley admitted. Emma always sees problems differently. Two's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps that is why the Krell fear your kind. Not just the genetics, but the unpredictability. Riley finally turned to face her teammate. Is that why the Federation fears us too? Two didn't deny it. The Council species value stability, predictability. Humans represent chaos in their ordered galaxy. Sometimes chaos is necessary for survival, Riley said. Emma taught me that too. 3 days later, Fireteam Umbra's ship emerged from FDL on the edge of the Sol system. Riley immediately ordered a full scan for Krell signatures, but found none. Their warning had bought them time. Earth loomed large on the view screen as they approached, blue and white, and achingly beautiful. Riley felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised her with its intensity. This was home, not just for her and Emma, but for billions of humans, most unaware of the genetic diversity that made their species uniquely adaptable, uniquely valuable, and uniquely dangerous in the eyes of both allies and enemies. Their arrival triggered immediate response from Earth's defense systems, established after first contact. Riley transmitted the emergency codes Hayes had provided, and they were quickly escorted to a Federation facility built into the dark side of Earth's moon. There, they briefed a joint Federation Human Defense Council on everything they had discovered. The revelation of the Krell's genetic harvesting program and their specific interest in adaptive humans caused immediate alarm. We need to evacuate the identified individuals, a Federation official suggested. Move them to secure facilities. No, Riley countered firmly. That's exactly what the Krell would expect. These people, my sister included, are not just genetic curiosities. Their adaptability, their different way of thinking, is our greatest asset against the Krell. What do you propose instead, Umbra 7? Asked General Marcus Hayes, who Riley had been surprised to discover was Commander Eliza Hayes' father. Riley took a deep breath. We need to prepare them, not hide them. The Krell adapt by stealing traits from other species. We adapt through experience and innovation. My sister taught me a fighting technique when she was 6 years old that was effective enough to impress a Federation combat instructor with 30 years of experience. Imagine what she and others like her could develop if they knew what was coming and were given the resources to prepare. The room fell silent as the implications settled. Finally, General Hayes nodded slowly. I think I see what Eliza recognized in you. The same quality she saw in these adaptive humans, not just genetic potential, but perspective. Sir, the Federation has been treating humans as junior partners since first contact, Hayes explained. Limiting our access to technology, restricting our development, always with the justification that we weren't ready. Perhaps they were right, in a way, but not for the reasons they thought. He stood, addressing the entire council. We weren't ready because we didn't know what we were facing. Now we do. I propose we implement Umbra 7's recommendation, a targeted preparation program for identified adaptive individuals, combined with a general defense initiative for Earth as a whole. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, Riley stood outside a university research building in Montana, dressed in civilian clothes for the first time in nearly a year. Around her, autumn leaves swirled in the crisp mountain air, so different from the recycled atmosphere of spaceships and space stations. The doors opened, and students began pouring out at the end of their classes. Riley spotted her immediately. Emma Cooper, now 20 years old, her dark hair pulled back in the same practical style Riley favored, her backpack loaded with xenobiology textbooks. Emma froze mid-step when she saw her sister, then broke into a run. They collided in a fierce hug that nearly knocked both of them over. Riley, they said you were on a classified assignment. Emma exclaimed, pulling back to look at her sister. When did you get back? Why didn't you call? Riley smiled, studying her sister's face, so familiar and yet somehow new. In Emma's eyes, she could see the same intelligence, the same unique perspective that had once invented a fighting technique that had altered the course of Riley's life. It's complicated, Riley admitted, and classified, but I have something important to tell you. Emma's expression grew serious. The Krell, she said quietly. They're coming for people like me, aren't they? Riley stared at her sister in shock. How could you possibly know that? Emma shrugged with the same casual confidence she'd always possessed. I've been studying xenobiology, remember? I started noticing patterns in how certain species evolve in response to environmental pressures. Then I started wondering about humans, about why some of us seem to adapt faster than others. I've been running my own genetic tests in the university lab. She smiled at Riley's astonished expression. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? You've always been the fighter in the family, but I'm the one who sees patterns. Riley shook her head in amazement. You're something else, you know that? The Federation's been monitoring you for months, and you've been investigating yourself the whole time. So what happens now? Emma asked. Some secret government program? Protective custody. Actually, Riley said, I'm here to recruit you. Not just as someone to protect, but as someone who can help us prepare. The Krell adapt by taking. We adapt by thinking differently. And right now, we need people who think like you. Emma grinned, the same mischievous smile that had preceded her flipping her older sister onto her back all those years ago. Well, it's about time someone recognized my talents. When do we start? Riley put her arm around her sister's shoulders as they walked away from the university. We already have. The Federation's providing resources, but the strategy, that's going to come from minds like yours. You know, Emma said thoughtfully, I've been working on some theories about accelerated neural adaptation that might be relevant. And I've got this idea about how we might be able to create false genetic markers to confuse any attempts at harvesting specific traits. Riley laughed. Of course you do. You've probably been preparing for this your whole life without knowing it. Just like you were, Emma pointed out. Remember when I taught you that fighting move? You said it would never work in a real fight. I was wrong, Riley admitted. It saved my life. And possibly Earth. Emma raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a story I need to hear. It is, Riley agreed. And someday, when this is all over, I'll tell you every detail. But for now, she looked up at the clear blue Montana sky, knowing that somewhere beyond it, both allies and enemies were watching Earth with new eyes. For now, we have work to do. As they walked together toward the waiting Federation transport, Riley thought about the strange journey that had brought her here. From a childhood game with her sister to an elite alien combat academy to a classified mission against an existential threat. All because Emma had once looked at a problem differently and found an unexpected solution. That was humanity's true strength, Riley realized. Not just that they came from a death world, not just that some of them possessed genes for accelerated adaptation, but that when faced with impossible challenges, humans didn't simply endure, they innovated. They changed the rules. They found new ways forward. The Krell adapted by taking from others. Humans adapted by creating something new. And that, Riley knew with absolute certainty, was why humanity would survive whatever came next. Because somewhere on Earth, there was always a 6-year-old girl looking at a problem and thinking, what if I just do this instead? And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.